Hello everyone, welcome to my shop. This is kind of a new adventure for me, shooting a YouTube video, but I've enjoyed so many of the YouTube videos that are out there that I thought I'll share a little bit of my stuff too. It's always enjoyable to see what everybody else comes up with, and I hope that some of you enjoy what I've come up with. We'll do it, we won't call it a shop tour, we'll just call it the shop. And we'll get around here eventually, maybe take more than one or two videos. But we'll talk about things as we go and not rush through the process so that everybody can get some info out of this. I hope you enjoy it and follow along. Thanks. Alrighty, let's start our walk around here in the welding area. This corner of my shop is basically the welding fab area. Try to keep all the mess in one corner, but it does spread out now and then into the rest of the shop. One good addition to my shop is this jib crane. The crane itself was an auction buy, and then installing the column. The column was put in when I planned this building, but you know, sometimes them good auction buys end up costing you down the road. That's just what mine did. But in the ceiling, it's supported by wood framing that goes out, spans a couple rafters in the building. In the floor, it goes 5 foot in the concrete. It's a 12-inch round footing down into the concrete, but it's rated for half ton. I've had every bit of that on there. It's nice to pick. I can pick out of the back of a pickup coming in the door here and be able to set it on my welding bench when I have to. But it's a handy addition, good back saver for sure. All right, this is my Wilton vent or vise. Sorry. These good vices are a worthwhile purchase. It's been with me 15, 16 years, and at the time I thought it was a lot of money, but it's certainly a good vise. Always dependable when I need it. It's a 4-inch, nothing too big, but it's seen its share of work. I always keep soft jaws on it. Currently got a set of brass jaws on it, or copper, I guess they are. But I got a set of homemade aluminum jaws that I run in there a lot of the time too, just to mainly keep the wear and tear off the original vise jaws. And if I need any more gripping power than that, we can always go down into the pipe jaws of this vise. So it sure saves on the jaws, the wear and tear and nicks and scratches on your jaws, to have a little jaw protection. I have it mounted on a separate base from my bench. The reason I did that was my bench is a 4x8 by 3/4 inch sheet of steel, and I wanted to keep the full 4x8 space open for sheets of sheet metal or whatever to throw up on there. So I mounted the vise off on its own separate type pedestal, which keeps it off the face of my bench. Anyway, the bench itself, like I said, is a 3/4 inch 4x8 sheet of steel. It has a angle iron framework for a shelf underneath, and pipe legs, and some good adjusters on the bottom. I try to keep the bench as level as possible, helps with fab duties, and Also, I can't bolt anything to the concrete in this building because it has a radiant heat system in the floor, so you can't drill no holes in the concrete. So that was one of the reasons to have such a heavy table, so that I can do my bending and pulling and not be able to slide the table across the room. One modification I made to this bench was the addition of this 2-inch receiver hitch welded into the framework of the bench. The reason for that is I have various tooling that I can put in that receiver hitch and have a good solid foundation to work off of. A couple pipe vices, Harbor Freight bender. The benders, all accessories are on a rack on the wall there that I fabricated. And this shear, whoops, it's a Beverly type shear from Woodward Fab. It's nice sheet metal tool. It's just a copy of a Beverly, but it does the job. Of course, the shelf is underneath my bench is always full of little pieces and fixtures and holding devices and junk as usual. This end of the bench is got a piece of 3/4 inch pipe welded between the legs that serves as my vice grip rack. They're handy to have underneath the bench there when you're doing your layout work, to reach under there and grab what you need. Better than having them on the wall somewhere. Little TIG torch, MIG gun holder, fab dial aluminum, magnetic to stick on the bench. But this shelf holds a wide array of different size little pieces of metal. Try to keep it fairly organized so that you can find that little piece when you need it. It's always good to have them little pieces for all your assorted projects around the shop. All right, over on this side, this is my homemade TIG fill rod rack. I keep all my TIG rod enclosed in something to keep it dirty and keep it from getting dirty and organized. I made these fill rod holders out of PVC pipe. They're back when I made them, PVC pipe was fairly reasonable. You could make about three of these holders out of a 10-foot piece of pipe. It's I don't know, the way everything is going up nowadays, it is probably too reasonable to make them. But then it's on a little wheeled rack. You can roll around to the job wherever you're working and grab your fill rod as you need it. Comes in handy. I use my column to store pry bars and inside the web of the column. A good place to have them out of reach, or within reach, but out of the way. Same way with the sledgehammers on this side. Stick them down in the web of the column. But I have a nice small little torch set. I use the smaller tanks. They get me by. I don't do a whole lot of torch work or heating. So it's more convenient for me to have the little ones to go get them filled, and when I need to lift them into in and out of the truck, and without straining too much. The bigger bottles I use the overhead hoist for. But as you can see, my shop is lined with Slat Wall. That's that's a very good, to me, a very handy way to line your shop wall. You can fabricate the brackets and you can buy the hooks or whatever on eBay, and there's usually a closeout on when a retail store goes out of business or moves or remodels. You can usually find this slat wall sometimes at a fairly reasonable price. But that's where I get mine. It all come from a secondhand store fixture supply place. But I just hang my welding hoods and shields and everything up on the hooks on the slat wall. You can move them wherever you have to. It's a lot like pegboard, but more handier if you ask me. Okay, my welding machine is a Miller Syncrowave 180 SD. Good machine. AC, DC, high frequency. I run argon gas for all my TIG work. The machine itself has preset pre-flow and post-flow times for your welding shielding gas, which is the only downside to this. I don't know, never did a study to see if if I had a valve where I could get by with less gas both ways, but it's not a big inconvenience. It comes in handy sometimes, actually. The plasma cutter is a Miller Syncrowave, Miller Spectrum 625 Extreme. Good little machine. It's about the size of a lunchbox, but I think its capacity is 5/8 steel. I know I've cut 1/2 inch with it a lot, but it's a good little machine. Lots of power. It'll run off both 110 and 220 volt, so that comes in handy sometimes. Anyway, I make patterns out of 1/4 inch plywood. It's kind of the poor man's CNC cutting machine. You see the last pattern I did was a vise mount, but you kind of got to size it by your tip's diameter, either bigger or smaller, but it works out really well to have them patterns like that. The welding and plasma cutter rack or cart is just a Craftsman toolbox. It with some handles off of an old cart. They just had a nice shape to them that worked out. And then I built the shelf in between to put the plasma on. It's nice to have the toolbox for all your welding supplies, fill rod, TIG accessories, torch accessories, extra welding cable, wire brushes, and then the bottom drawer is just grinder and grinder wheels. But works out really nice to have that stuff enclosed and kept clean, basically. But then again, the slat wall with pegs is where I store most of my 4.5 inch sanding discs and grinder wheels and cutoff wheels. It's makes a good location to be able to grab one when you need it, keep them organized. But my MIG machine is the old faithful Millermatic 200. This machine's from the 80s. I think I got it in 86. Good old machine, runs good welds. It's built like a tank. But and I run C25 gas on my most of my MIG with ER70S wire, 35 thousandths wire. But good machine, been with me a long time. Can't complain about it a bit. As I said, I built this rack for all the bender accessories. The main handle, all the different sized rolls and pins. Keeps it all organized here out of the way. When you set up, you can just grab what you need real quick like. More clamps on the slat wall. Plus my grinder rack. It's nice to have a grinder for each different, either grinding or sanding or wire brush. I pick up a lot of these at estate sales and things like that. But I do have one battery powered Craftsman, 19.2 volt. It's kind of I think they're obsolete in the Craftsman lineup now, but the battery powered stuff's the way to go anymore. That's a good grinder. It's pretty handy to not have to drag that cord around all the time. But more clamps. Again, making use of the slat wall around the shop just to store all the clamps. And a nice little rack for all the different size metals, angle irons, tubing. Leaning up against the wall. The rack itself is, you can see how the pegs are built and welded on there. And then it's just got a angle iron base with some sheet metal. But it makes a handy storage area for the pieces you can grab off the wall real quick. Got a 6x24 with a 12-inch disc sander. I know a lot of guys have these in the vertical position, but I got kind of used to having it in the horizontal position, and I like running it there. Most of I think it's meant to be in the vertical position, but I like the accessibility of having it in the horizontal position most of the time for what I'm doing. Got this old grinder set up here. I keep my grinding wheel and a wire brush on here. This is for rough grinding and cleaning, wire brush cleaning. A little 1/2-inch motor running that. It's built on a wood frame. The arbor, or whatever you call it itself, was a kind of is a homemade deal that I built. I built it during some of my downtime at where I used to work. Home project. Everybody needs a home project now and then. But it's a good old wood stand, been with me 40 years. I kind of hate to, I think about building a nice metal stand for it every now and then, but I kind of hate to, sentimental value now. But keep my electric welding rod in a bucket under here, all in welding rod cases. Keeps them clean, keeps them fairly dry. But and here's my old Rockwell. That's a Rockwell grinder. This is a good old machine. The base, the pedestal itself was rusted terribly from where it came from. So I took that all apart and sandblasted and repainted it. There used to be a cooling tray that mounted right here, and I think the person grinding his tooling always dipped it in the coolant tray, and the water run down here, and that just rusted everything to pieces. But it all sanded up, cleaned up good. I keep I don't know what they are. One wheel's coarse and one wheel's a finer wheel. This is just for grinding tool bits. I don't do any rough grinding with that. Mainly just tooling for the machine work. But a good machine, them wheels will run for 5 minutes after you shut it off. It runs so smooth. But this is my little homemade welding fixture. It just spins on a piece of pipe. If you set up right, with the MIG welder anyway, you can rest your arm and with the MIG gun in one hand and spin that with the other hand and weld around stuff real slick like. Someday I plan on making a motorized one. Shoot, you could probably run it with a drill, small battery operated drill or something like that. But that's a future project like everything else. But this pretty much covers the welding corner of my shop. It serves me well. I don't know if there's any ideas you guys can pick up out of here, but it's always nice to have everything well organized and within eyesight so you can reach it. I have one drop down cord for 110 volt that comes from the ceiling. But other than that, I have a 40-foot pull-out 110 volt cord reel over here. Those come from Northern Tool, I think. But the building itself, I run it off a 200 amp service, single phase, no three phase in here. I'm in a residential neighborhood, so no three phase. That would be a really nice addition to have three phase with, you know, but all them guys are running them phase converters and everything that don't seem to have any problems with them. I've turned down a lot of good equipment that was three phase, I know that. Anyway, that's the tour of the welding corner of the shop. We'll head on down around the shop in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe and like if you will. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks. I thought I'd show you a little video on making some homemade TIG rod storage tubes. These are made out of 2-inch PVC. If you cut both pieces, you can make 3 tubes out of one 10-foot piece of PVC. It takes 2 caps and 1 repair type coupling. Glue the caps on each end of the tube and glue half of the repair type coupling on the longer tube. Let it dry good, then your top short piece will slide in and out of your repair coupling. Makes a pretty good storage area for your TIG rod and helps keep it clean and organized. Thanks for watching. Later.